Hey guys, hope all of you are doing fine. This is the part 6 of the Being Reborn in Marvel with Gamer's ability. Marvel Gamer Part 6. The runes within the cave pulsed with magic as they began to open a portal to another dimension, shrouding me in ancient Nordic magic. Sighing, I decided to put an end to the light show occurring around me, using my own magic to stop the process, deactivating the runes. So this is an old portal to Asgard. This little thing would be interesting, for another time. Now I wanted to get back to the hotel. Asgard would be there tomorrow. Closing the cave with an eldritch runic illusion, I left the place there for future research as I opened a portal back to the hotel. In my room, I found Bucky, Natasha, and Emily watching a movie. "What are you doing in my room?" I asked them as I grabbed a change of clothes from my suitcase. It was funny seeing the stoic Bucky being such a good uncle. "Your TV is bigger than ours, and it's movie night." Emily smiled, showing me the movie they had rented. Pocahontas. "I see. Well, while you're doing that, I'm going to take a shower and then dinner. So let me know if there's anything else," I said as I went into the bathroom to take a shower and change into something more comfortable. The next few days, things continued as planned, with me, Bucky, and the girls enjoying our short vacation. We skied, we bought stuff we would never use, the normal. Eventually, the time to come home had arrived, and so, we boarded the plane back to the USA, with a lot of memories in our hearts and cameras. "Can we go to Spain next?" Nat asked, stretching her legs on her seat. "Sounds like a plan." I smiled. Spain was amongst the countries I wanted to visit. Oh, after that, we could go to Italy or France," Emily added with a smile, closing her eyes at the end of her sentence. "First, let's see if you girls keep your grades as good as you have them right now, and then, we can discuss all the trips we will do." I winked at them. "And here I was thinking you were about to give us a challenge," Natasha smirked cockily. "Keep talking, and I will get creative with my easy challenges," I smirked back. "I would like to take back my last statement." Nat chuckled. "Smart girl." I chuckled back. "Do you guys want anything to eat?" Bucky asked, showing us the menu. "God, I love having money." I hummed, grabbing the menu. "Oh, sirloin steak." I smiled, my mouth watering the thought. "I think I'll take 2 of these and some whiskey." "I want a burger," Emily said. "With fries," she added. "I want the sirloin too, with fries," Nat said. "And a Coke." "I want a Fanta," Emily said. "What about you, Bucky?" I asked. "A burger, fries, and beer." Bucky, like always, having simple demands. "Okay." I nodded, waving at the flight attendant to get our order. "What can I do for you today, Mr. Walker?" the flight attendant said with the utmost respect. "We are famished, so we would like some food if your kitchen is working." I chuckled. "Of course, our kitchens never fail, worry not." She didn't understand the joke. "Perfect then, ready for our order?" I asked. "Yes." The flight attendant nodded. "Perfect, we would like 2 burgers with everything, both with fries, one with a Fanta, and the other with a beer." I said, "We would also like 3 sirloin steaks, fries with them. Whiskey for one of them, and Coke for the other 2. 2 Cokes?" Nat inquired. "It for when the whiskey is gone." I smiled. "Perfect, Mr. Walker, I'll be with your order in a bit. In the meantime, would you like one of our famous appetizers?" the flight attendant inquired. "Surprise me." I nodded. "As you wish." The flight attendant smiled, leaving back to the kitchen. After our flight, we drove back home, and everyone went to their respective rooms to sleep. Something about food and flying makes one sleepy. Checking my phone, I was glad to find Alexei and Milena were behaving, doing just as I told them. Bucky, I called. A few seconds later, Bucky opened my door. What? He asked. I need to work, so I might be gone for a week. I was eager to study the runes in the cave and visit Asgard if time allowed it. I'll take care of everything, Bucky nodded. You have a credit card with no limits, so keep things running. I smiled. Will do. Bucky smiled back. With that said and done, I opened a portal to the cave I had found during my trip, leaving Bucky in charge of the house and other things. Time to see if there's anything more than portal runes in this cave, I said, as the portal behind me closed. I continued studying the runes within the cave, reading and translating each rune with extreme care, all while ensuring my mana didn't infuse the runes at all. First, I wanted to be sure this portal wasn't a portal to transport criminals back to Asgard. The last thing I wanted was to end in a place where I could not use magic to escape or, worse, in the room of Odin with Frigga inside. If my calculations were correct, the man was powerful enough to use a fly swatter and one-shot me, so angering him was not on my list of things to do. On the contrary, I wanted to make an alliance with him, maybe make some friendly ties with Asgard as a whole. It would undoubtedly help me in the future, especially with Thanos coming. Perhaps even stop Ragnarok while I was at it. I mean, all I had to do was keep the Sultan's crown on my inventory, and he would never destroy Asgard. Though my main objective with them was getting Sumeru, that metal alone was worth the trip to Asgard, where I needed to get the location of Nidavellir, which alone and without help could very well take me years to locate. Let's see what else I can learn. I continued to study the runes at the cave for hours. Noticing a few discrepancies in some of the runes, it seemed whoever made the cave as a teleporting post was not exactly well versed in magic. For one, if anyone with a below-average amount of mana tried to open the portal, well, let's just say not all of him or her would have arrived at Asgard. The portal was so poorly done, that it would activate regardless if the user used the right correct amount of mana or not. Perhaps they did it in a rush, perhaps whoever did the portal was just running away from something. Beyond that, the portal was seemingly functional to the best of its broken capability. As long as the user had a decent amount of mana to compensate for the poor craftsmanship of the portal, the gate would open. Now the question was, should I open the portal to Asgard, or wait for a bit? It was a tough decision. For one, I had no idea how was Asgard's policy against visitors. And considering they had beings like Odin, Thor, Loki, and Frigga defending the place, the last thing I wanted was to start up a fight I knew I couldn't possibly win by appearing out of nowhere. But on the other side, the upside was so good, it was worth the risk to some extent. Sighing, I started to weigh my options on a mental scale. Going would really open a path for me, I muttered, as I looked at the runes again. But depending on who I meet first, a fight will be imminent. I mean, Thor is on his idiot phase, he learns to have a brain after the events of Thor, but right now, all he is a muscle head, with serious testosterone problems. I could always outsmart him, he was all brawn. All I need is him rushing at me without a care for the world, and me opening a portal to the North Pole. Fuck it. I sighed, sometimes in life, you had to take a risk. Reading the runes out loud, I infused the place with my mana and this time allowed the place to do its intended work. The process was painfully slow, which practically erased the possibility this portal was done as a rushed job to escape something. I mean, what is the point of making something fast to escape something if the portal takes a minute to do its thing? You might as well kill yourself and save the enemy the trouble, as a professional courtesy. Eventually, the portal engulfed my entire body on dimensional magic, finally pushing me out of the cave. It was somewhat painful, another defect I had just found. The portal was actively hurting me, taking bits of my HP, not enough to be a concern, but enough to know anyone below level 50 would have died in 3 seconds or less. Minus 2500 HP. Minus 2500 HP. Minus 2500 HP. Minus 2500 HP. 2 minutes later, the cave finally teleported me to Asgard. The middle of it, like right on the plaza. As one would expect, the soldiers that were patrolling the place raised their weapons at me, which was totally understandable. I would have done the same if someone popped into my living unannounced. I come in peace, I offered with a small smile. In the name of Asgard and the All-Father, freeze. A soldier barked. Haroldine Drydeson LV-60. Sure. I nodded. Who are you? A female soldier asked. Astrid Geirmundotter LV-62. I am a human, I come from Earth, or Midgard as you guys know it, and I want a meeting with the All-Father, if he allows it. Of course I answered as the soldiers started to circle me. I knew this strategy. Now if I made a move, they had the tactical advantage. How did you enter Asgard, human? A new soldier asked, Rudi Vejerson LV-59. I found a portal on Earth, and well here I am, I replied. So far I had no reasons to withhold information. You will come with us, Astrid Geirmundotter said, with a tone of finality. Sure. I smiled. Lead the way. Understandably they took me to a small cell, one normally used for small offenders as they sorted out what to do with me. I stayed out of my own volition, even without magic breaking out would have been a piece of cake, but I wanted to show them I honestly came in peace. So, you are the human that appeared in the plaza? I heard a feminine voice say in a commanding tone. Yes, that would be me. I nodded, turning to meet my visitor. Sif, the Nordic goddess of war, LV-139, she was mesmerizingly beautiful. There was a veil of danger around her beauty that made her all the more attractive. It was shocking really. I expected that level to be a bit higher, it's high nonetheless. Why have you come to Asgard? Sif inquired, taking a seat outside my cell. To talk with the All-Father, I answered. Sif stared at me as if trying to see if I was lying. Why? I want to form some friendly ties with him, and maybe get to know this place, I replied, looking around. I say we let him battle his right to speak with my father. I heard someone shout, as he came into my cell. I didn't even need to see who it was to know it was Thor. Battle, I hummed as Thor came into view. Thor Odinson LV-267. Well, that was problematic if he wanted to fight me. Yes, after all, only the mightiest warriors get to see the All-Father. Thor grinned, his hand going to the hammer hanging on his waist. And let me guess, you want to fight me? I asked with an amused tone. You guessed correct, human. Thor nodded with a smile. Sure, sounds fun. I smiled. I was about to get my ass kicked, but I would learn a trick or two. Besides, if this helped me get a meeting with Odin, so be it. Huzzah! Thor grinned as Sif face-palmed. I happily agreed to battle Thor. Knowing full well he didn't expect me to defeat him, he just wanted to have some fun. So, where do we battle? I asked, eyeing the god of thunder with just the hint of a smile. In the arena, where else? Thor grinned. Our battle will be legendary, or boring. Last time I checked humans were squishy, he muttered. I chuckled. Most are. I conceded. Then I hope you are not. Thor smiled, opening my cell. Thor, the All-Father asked me to talk with him, and decide whether or not he is worthy of meeting him. Sif hissed with a tight smile. It's okay, Lady Sif. I chuckled. After the battle, I can come back to the cell if that helps your vetting process, but a workout would do me good. Sif sighed. I suppose that could work. Huzzah! Thor grinned. Then let us battle into bloody glory. The god of thunder exulted, pumping his fist in the air in delight. So where is this arena you speak of? I asked. Follow me, my friend. Thor said, grabbing my arm like a kid eager to play. How the fuck was this man over 1,000 years old? I would never know. When Thor challenged me to a duel, I expected a small affair, not a fucking arena full of people cheering for him. Yes, I know. Thor smiled, bathing in all the love and adoration the people of Asgard were giving him. God, is he always like this? I muttered to myself. Yes. I heard someone reply. Loki Odinson LV 223. Hi. I waved at Loki. At first sight, he didn't seem so bad, but that was usually the case with crazy people. Loki looked at me for a moment, before he finally decided to wave back. You won't beat my brother with brawn, so do try to use that brain of yours, human, he said, leaving to his seat. I don't know if he was being friendly, or not. Now, in case you don't have one, we can provide you with the finest Asgardian armor we have to battle, Sif said as she approached me. I'm fine, I have my own armor. I smiled, denying her offer. You know you can die here, right? Sif sighed, looking at Thor. Thor is not one known for his restraint, he will go all out, especially if he has an audience. Believe it or not, I am not as squishy as I look. I smiled. Though worry not, I'm not aiming for a victory, I can feel he's stronger than me, so all I plan to do is earn his respect through combat. I feel this is how the god of thunder makes friends. Sif chuckled. That or getting drunk, or both at the same time. I know this is a long shot, but any tips? I asked, looking at Thor doing JoJo poses for his fans. Sif smiled. Let him lead. Thor usually becomes predictable when you let him be the one dictating the rules of the battle. Mighty thanks, Lady Sif. I smiled. Good luck, human. Sif smiled, going to her seat. Father! Thor shouted, getting my attention. Turning around, I witness as the All-Father arrived at the arena, looking at Thor with an exasperated look. Odin Borson LV 475. Holy cannelloni, that is a high fucking level, I think the highest I have ever seen. I give you this victory, Father. Thor shouted with a smile. I give you this victory, he doesn't even consider me a threat, awesome. Inhabitants of Asgard. An Asgardian soldier said, his voice both grave and sharp. Today we have a unique event, a warrior of Midgard will battle the crown prince of Asgard in an epic battle. Oh, he was the announcer, cool. The soldier allowed a moment of silence as Thor continued to flex his muscles. I know what many of you think, but he's a human, he will die in less than a second, he is weak, puny, and at best an ant against our prince. I was going to kill that announcer. But he is different, he is mighty. The mightiest human. Maybe not, maybe he would live. The announcer smiled, as the arena was filled with cries of joy and delight. You will witness the titanic battle of two warriors from different worlds, different species, the mightiest of their kind, clashing in honorable combat here today. He continued, getting more cries of joy from the audience. Well, this guy knows how to sell some tickets. I chuckled, seeing the Asgardian people shout with joy. Without further ado, let the battle of might begin. The announcer shouted, walking out of the stage. All right. Thor smiled, cracking his neck. Okay. I sighed, equipping my armor. Bucky POV. When Alex left me in charge, I expected many things, but one of them wasn't the girls ganging up on me to do me a makeover. Come on, is not that bad. Nat grinned, as she continued doing my hair. You should attack your father, not me, I muttered, as Emily painted my nails. Daddy will get his, he will not see it coming, but he will get his. Emily smiled an evil smile. For now, we only have you. Nat chuckled. And you will look fabulous. I sighed. As long as you attack your father one day, I am all for it. I sighed, at least I was not alone on this today. What the fudge are you complaining about? Fury asked as he narrowed his eyes on me. At least they didn't put a wig on you. I'm not bald, I replied as a matter of fact. Tush. Fury sighed. Don't worry, we will only ever take a few hundred pics. Nat grinned. That's so evil. Emily gasped. I like it, she added with a deep tone. I don't feel safe. Fury muttered. We need more glitter. Emily declared, running into her room for the emergency glitter package. I never thought playing makeover would be so fun. Nat chuckled as she saw Emily run out of the room. Great, glitter. Fury sighed. I will look like a stripper when I got back to the office. Sif POV. The announcer's voice echoed through the audience for the last time as I took a seat beside the Warrior 3, Loki, and the All-Father. Let the battle begin. Do you think the human will last more than a few seconds? Volstagg asked Frandl. Nope. Frandl chuckled. The announcer had barely finished his sentence when Thor instantly charged at the human with a confident grin on his face, ready to slam him with his hammer. The latter, taking my advice, was already in a defensive stance, letting Thor dictate the pace of the combat, waiting for him, which allowed him to dodge Thor's hammer by just an inch. You owe me a beer. Volstagg laughed, punching Frandl. Well, I guess I do. Frandl sighed. The human took a step back and blocked Thor's next two blows with his forearms, before attempting to blast Thor away with some sort of magic laser, which ultimately failed when Thor started to spin engineer, blocking the attack. Taking a step back, the human got into another stable defensive stance, as he eyed Thor with caution. Grinning, Thor quickly continued the assault, throwing his hammer at him, but with a quick circular move of his hands, the human opened some kind of portal, redirecting Thor's attack back at him. Then, as Thor lost his balance thanks to engineer hitting on the head, the human leaped at Thor, punching him in the face with devastating force. The attack threw Thor even more off balance, and the human intended to press his advantage. The human pushed Thor back with a flurry of attacks, each punch and kick being stronger than the last. Unfortunately for the human, Thor recovered quickly and with a satisfied smile, punched the human away, recovering his hammer with his other hand. This is fun, Thor declared with a wide grin. It is. The human chuckled, as he stood up from the ground. Let us continue, Thor shouted, and in the blink of an eye, he closed the distance between him and the human, pushing him back with a powerful set of attacks, using his godly domain to punish the human. It was clear what the result of this match was going to be. The human was quickly becoming overwhelmed by Thor's superior raw force, and adding lightning to that was pushing him even more, and under such conditions, he had begun a slow retreat backwards under the onslaught of incoming blows, blood seeping out of his armor. "You know," Thor said with a smirk, blasting the human away with a lightning bolt. "You are the first human I have ever battled that lasted this long. Not even Asgardians take such a beating and keep on fighting." The prince was clearly happy. "Well, I must admit though, I am nearing my limit." The human sighed with a small chuckle. Thor chuckled. "Then let us end this. Shall we?" "Let's." The human nodded, summoning a massive ball of pure fiery inferno on his hands. "Hellfire!" he shouted, blasting the ball into the arena. Seconds later, a pillar of flamers engulfed Thor, and the once cheering audience was rendered mute. Even the warrior three had gone silent, watching the arena in shock. "That actually hurt!" Thor shouted, flying out of the flaming pillar with a few minor burns as he rushed towards the human, hammer at hand. "That was the intention," the human shouted back, summoning another pillar below Thor. Grinning, Thor raised his hammer above his head as the fire engulfed him once more, and with the might expected of the crowned prince of Asgard, brought down on the human the might of the Asgardian gods with the clap of a thunder. Unable to dodge the attack, the human stood still, tanking Thor's thunder, as his fire pillars dissipated. "I give up," the human eventually muttered, going down on his knees. Thor flew towards him and grabbed the human by the arms. "It was an honorable fight." "Honor hurts," the human chuckled, groaning in pain. "Let me take you to the infirmary." Thor chuckled, carrying the human away. "And there you have it, Asgard. The winner is Thor Odinson," the announcer declared, and once again the audience was shouting in joy, and in a newfound respect for the human. "Well, that was unexpected," Fandral admitted. Volstagg chuckled. "He fought like a true warrior, even though he knew winning was not an option." He grinned. "Does he has Asgardian blood?" "I don't know," Fandral replied, considering the thought. "Why would an Asgardian live on Midgard?" Loki rolled his eyes. "Well, Asgardian or not, he gave us quite the show," I admitted. "Never in my long life I expected a human to show such prowess in combat. It pained me to admit it, but I doubted anyone here besides Thor, and the All-Father himself had a chance against him." "He did." Horgun nodded. "His prowess was rather shocking." "So now what, Father?" Loki said, looking at Odin. "We give the human an Asgardian welcome," Odin replied with a neutral look. "Huzzah!" Volstagg grinned. "A feast. Will you ever think with your brain? And not your stomach?" Loki muttered. "Too much thinking cuts in my eating time," Volstagg defended. "Well, if you all excuse me, I will go ahead and check how the human and Thor are doing," I said, taking my leave. "Send him our regards," Fandral shouted. "Or you could do it yourself." Horgun sighed, following me into the infirmary. "Wait for me," Volstagg said as he ran towards us. "Hey! Don't leave me with Loki, we have nothing in common," Fandral shouted, following us. By the time we arrived at the infirmary, Thor and the human were laughing, both with a mug of beer at hand. "This human beer is truly magnificent," Thor declared. "And the mug never empties, truly the best thing I have ever seen." "Infinite beer!" Volstagg cried, tears falling down his eyes. "I love this human." I guess that makes him your friend, huh? I chuckled, looking at Thor. He fought with me, he drank with me. He is my blood brother, Thor declared with a grin. What can I say, people love me. The human smiled, winking at me. Can I get one of those? Volstagg said, his two index fingers touching in a shy manner. Sure. The human smiled, summoning another mug out of nowhere. Volstagg grinned, like a child grabbing the mug. This is the day I find true happiness. Hey, don't leave the handsome one hanging. Fandral smirked, approaching the human. You're at best a 5 out 10, but sure. The human shrugged, giving him a mug too. What about you two? He asked. I prefer tea, Horgun replied. I don't mind getting one. I smiled. A tea mug, and a beer one coming right up. The human smiled. By the way, weren't you hurt a few seconds ago? Fandral asked. He was, but then he drank some red stuff, and was as good as new. Thor answered for him. He even gave me one for my burns, it tasted like cherry, or blood, not sure. After my battle with Thor, things changed for the better. I was basically welcomed to Asgard with opened arms, just because I had battled their prince honorably. Though I was a bit salty, I didn't manage to hurt him nearly as much as he hurt me. I even used on my strongest magical spell, Hellfire, which I got from one of the many dungeons I had completed. Nonetheless, I suppose the result of the match was favorable. I got my chance to meet Odin, after the feast the king himself was throwing in my honor, which if you asked me it was a bit too much. But, considering they have at least a weekly feast, maybe is not that important. You battled like a true warrior, Sif said, snapping me out of my long reverie. Thanks. I smiled. So, are now Midgardians as strong as you? Sif asked with a smile. Well, no. I chuckled. I can count with one hand how many humans are around my level. Well, still a surprising feat. Sif nodded. In my 1,000 years, I have never witnessed a human with such prowess in battle. Well, you know us, ever evolving. I smiled. I suppose that is true. Sif nodded. Here goes nothing, so, while we wait for the feast, care to give me a tour of this wonderful place you call home? Is this how humans court each other? Sif snorted, raising a single eyebrow. I chuckled. Who said I am courting you? I challenged. Fair enough. Sif chuckled. Let's start this tour, human. Our tour started at the place I was apprehended, the main plaza, which now looked more beautiful without people poking me with spears and stuff. Here was where we captured you, which now I know, it would have been a whole more difficult had you not been so cooperative. Sif began. Isn't that a general rule? People that don't resist are usually easy to capture, I replied. I suppose, but regardless of that, you made our job remarkably less messy, Sif stated. So is Midgard bigger than Asgard? I asked. Yes, Sif replied. Our planet is small compared to Midgard. But, is bigger in other senses. Army-wise, I suppose, I replied. Indeed. Sif smiled. So now what? I asked. Now we go to the market, Sif replied, and so the tour continued. I had to admit, Asgard was beautiful beyond anything I had ever seen. It was mesmerizing, heck, I was even considering buying a vacation house here. If my money was any good here, I had no idea what Asgardians considered valuable or not. Eventually, our tour came to an end at the gates of Odin's feast hall. And here we are, Sif said, looking at the gates. The feast already started? I asked, hearing the sounds of music and people inside. Yes, feasts usually start before the guest of honor arrives. It is considered an insult to show the guest to the party before it begins. Sif nodded. Ha, cultural differences. Well, let's not keep the people waiting. I grinned. Let's not. Sif nodded, as I opened the gates. Human, welcome. Odin's voice boomed through the audience, as I walked inside. A pleasure to meet you. I bowed ever so lightly. Come, take a seat beside my son. Odin smiled, pointing to where Thor was seated. Here, buddy. Thor smiled, waving at me like a kid that had saved his best friend a seat. Here, here. Volstagg echoed him. Thanks. I bowed once again, and walked towards Thor, as I eyed Loki, who seemed to be side-glaring at me. Alone with Lady Sif, ha. Fandral chuckled. You must have a death wish. Unlike you, he can keep it on his pants, Sif replied before I had the chance. It was one time. One. Fandral replied in an insulted manner. So, how's the food? I asked, taking a seat beside Thor. Delicious. Put your feeble Misgardian lips of this mighty Asgardian chicken and see. Feeble, this bitch. Ignoring his lack of social tact, I grabbed a piece of chicken and bit into it. It was good, very good, but nothing like out of the park. I had tasted better chicken on earth. Top 5, but not the best, I said. Are you saying the mightiest chicken is on Midgard? Thor asked, looking at his chicken in shock. Indeed. I nodded. It's settled. I must visit Midgard with you when you go back. I'll stay on your castle. Thor exclaimed. I wanna go too. Volstagg shouted. Same, Midgardian ladies need a bit of Fandral. Fandral smirked. He isn't coming, I stated. Wise choice, Horgun nodded. Hey. Fandral pouted. I concur with Horgun. Sif smiled. You guys are mean. Fandral sighed, as he stood up and walked to the drinks. Odin Borson, POV. Alex Walker, the apprentice of Yao, now known as the Ancient One if memory serves me right. I wonder, why is he here? It has been some time since the last Midgardian came to Asgard, a few hundred years. Though, I wasn't sure if he was a human. While I knew he came from Midgard, his spiritual energy gave a different reading, one that I couldn't quite figure out what it was, or where it came from. But one thing was for sure, whatever I was feeling, it was older than me. Perhaps older than Asgard itself. You've been staring at the Midgardian for quite a while, Frigga muttered into my ear. Is there something wrong? No. I shook my head. Just watching him and Thor become friends. He's strong, Frigga commented. He is, I nodded ever so lightly. What do you think he wants? He did say he wanted to talk with you. Frigga said. I don't know, but I can't wait to find out, I replied. In all honesty, I had no idea what his motive for being here was, but I had a feeling it had to do with him possessing the Space Stone. After the party ended with Thor being super drunk, I was invited to talk with Odin. Finally, the moment I had been waiting was finally here. I would finally get to talk with the man in charge. Greetings. Odin said as I entered the throne room. A pleasure to finally meet you. I bowed, alone. I added. Did you enjoy the party? Frigga asked, taking a seat beside her husband. It was quite the party. I nodded. I'm glad. Frigga smiled at me warmly. I heard you wanted to talk with me. Odin began. Well, you are here, so talk. Straight to the point, I can respect that. Well, I wanted to propose an alliance of sorts between Asgard and me. I replied. Asgard already has an alliance with Earth. Frigga replied, we are responsible for Midgard's protection. I know to some extent about that, but... I sighed. Odin, catching on, chuckled. You think we are not doing a great job with that, right? Yes. I nodded. Look, nothing against you or Asgard, I know for a fact you can't be babysitting us at every turn. Odin nodded. We only interfere if Midgard can't handle the situation. Exactly, and that brings us to this talk. I smiled. I want Midgard to be able to handle anything. Odin raised an eyebrow. How? He asked, his only eye on me. As I am right now, I am the second strongest human in the entire universe. I began, a bit salty. Carol was stronger than me, but even with my strength, I can't defend the Earth, not like I want to. Frigga looked at me. What could possibly threaten Midgard so much that scares you? I chuckled. Thanks for the compliment, really. But we all know there are beings out there in the cosmos, beings mad for power. The Mad Titan. Odin stated. I blinked in surprise. Yes. He won't make a move for any of the 9 realms as long as I am alive. Odin reassured me. With all due respect, sir. I sighed, hoping that what I was to say wasn't going to insult him. The day will come when you won't be around anymore, and we will have more than one problem to deal with. Problems Asgard won't be able to handle. Odin glared at me, before leaving out a sigh. Yes, Asgard is not ready to handle her or the Mad Titan for that case. Huh? Frigga asked. Another threat the universe as a whole is facing. Odin replied, shoving the subject down the rug. My point is, none of those threats will make a move as long as you are alive. I continued, they know you can stop them, kill them, so they will stay back, move without igniting your wrath, but when your final day comes, they will crush everything you have ever protected. Odin sighed. You are Yao's apprentice, all right. Yao's? Who? You know her as the Ancient One. Odin chuckled. Ha, so she had a name. Odd, my power never showed me. Perhaps she never saw herself as Yao, at least not anymore. So what exactly do you want? Frigga asked. If these threats are waiting for my husband to pass away, I am with you. We need to prepare. Though, you will have to excuse me, but I don't think you will live to that day. We Asgardian have a long lifespan, and Odin still has a few thousand years on his belt. He knows that, Frigga. Odin said with a sigh. What he's saying is, I will die during his lifetime. Frigga looked at me in shock. What? I had some visions. I lied. Can it be avoided? Odin asked. Not sure, but it should be. I replied. Odin chuckled. I forgot how cryptic Yao was with her visions, absolute points and all. Is my death an absolute point? He asked with a smile. No. I shook my head. Frigga looked at me. Then what can we do to avoid this? Kill Loki. If it wasn't for him, Odin's life force wouldn't have faded away, or free Hela, she was also sucking on his life force. Not sure, but I will help you avoid that to the best of my abilities. I declared. Is that all you can say? Can't you at least tell us how? Frigga pressed, but Odin stopped her. Frigga, the future is ever changing. If he saw my demise, and speaks about it, his knowledge and power to stop it goes away with him sharing it. Right now, he knows what could happen, and perhaps has a chance to help us. Odin sighed, giving me a knowing look. Will you help us? Frigga asked. Well, that's the idea. I nodded, though, like Odin said, I'm not entirely sure I can change what I saw. So, what exactly do you want from Asgard? Odin asked. Power. I replied, I need power, training, anything Asgard can offer in my pursuit of self-betterment. You want Uru equipment? Odin replied, shocking me. How the fuck did he came to that conclusion? I didn't even mention that. If possible. I nodded. Uru is a metal only the gods are worthy to wield, Frigga said. You would have to prove you are worthy of being called such. Odin nodded. Being called a god. I chuckled. Yeah, that's a big red flag on me, god, no thank you. You will get what you desire, when you prove yourself worthy of it. Odin replied. Fair enough. I nodded. In the meantime, feel free to train and be on Asgard, Odin added. About that, is there any way I can buy a house here, for vacational purposes? I asked. We can provide you with one, if you are willing to pay for it in blood. Odin replied. Blood. Asgard real estate was a bit too edgy for me. By helping Asgard in battle. Odin explained, we have a few battles here and there with the enemies of Asgard. Oh, then sure. I nodded. I sat cross-legged in the center of the Asgard's arena, my long sword which had been provided by Asgard for the day resting on my knees as I ate the sandwich Emily and Natasha had made me. For the past month, all I had done day in and day out was come here to fight. After checking up on the girls, of course. As always, a cold wind blew over the battle arena, as the sounds of people muttering filled the area. However, that was not all you could hear. In the distance, the clanking of armor and the whisper of a mace cutting through the air started to draw closer and closer. Stand and face me, commanded a powerful voice, which was no other than Horgun. With a smile, I held up a finger as I finished eating my sandwich. Priorities first. Horgun was a powerfully built man, broad-shouldered and thick-armed but at the same time lean for agility. With Asgardian steel armor from head to toe, and as a weapon his trusty mace. I had never fought against him, against Thor, several times during this month, against Sif, at least a dozen times just this week, but against him. Never. I thought you'd never come to fight me, I said, licking my fingers. The sandwich had been really good, no idea what kind of sauce the girls added to it, but it was finger-licking good. It's time for me to prove how strong you are, human, Horgun said, adopting a fighting stance similar to the Asgardians I had faced before. Okay, I said, rising to my feet in one smooth motion. Let's fight. I cracked my neck as I twirled my longsword around to loosen the muscles in my shoulders. Not that I needed it, of course, but I had been fighting, on and off, for the past 6 hours, so I had to test the waters. Without another word, the Asgardian quickly closed the gap between us and attacked with precision and skill, but after weeks of fighting in the arena, I noticed something. His attacks were predictable for me, which made the entire ordeal uninteresting. In the end, it seemed I had learned and adapted to the battle pattern in the Asgardian soldier's way of fighting. Horgun was fast, strong, and skilled enough to wield his weapon with great proficiency. But none of that mattered if he was predictable. With a sigh, I parried the first blow, dodged the second, and parried the third, all without breaking a sweat. Then, moving close to him as he attacked, I broke the Asgardian's guard with a sideways blow to his ribs. The metal of his armor twisted and the man dropped to one knee with a grunt of pain. With a smile, I gave the warrior time to recover, to ease his pain, for perhaps I had punched him too hard. Seeing me look at him with worry, Horgun smiled and tore off the piece of armor that my attack had bent. "I don't stand a chance," said the Asgardian with a grin, "but that makes it more fun." "Admirable," I replied with a whistle, as I saw the blood running down the side of his mouth, which confirmed I had punched him too hard. Finally, on his feet, Horgun took a calming breath as he grabbed the weapon he had dropped on the floor during my previous attack, and with a quick move, he restarted the battle, with a series of lightning-fast attacks that went high and low. With ease, I dodged each and every single attack, my long sword in constant motion as I deflected the Asgardian's attacks. Then when the opportunity came, I took a step forward and planted my fist on his stomach, breaking his armor into pieces, knocking the Asgardian out. "I told him only I could defeat you," Thor chuckled, walking towards us. "For now." I grinned at the Asgardian god. "As if." Thor grinned back. He knew he had no chance, but wanted to test himself against you, Sif said, putting her hand on my shoulder. "Medics!" Fandral shouted. "He will be out of commission for the day. That punch had to break a few bones at the very least." He shuddered. "Remembering when he broke your jaw?" Sif grinned at Fandral. "I had to eat through a straw that day." "A straw?" Fandral exclaimed in exasperation. "For the record, I apologized." I chuckled. "Grow a pair, Fandral." Volstagg cackled. "He tattooed my stomach with his fist, and I don't cry as much as you. Unlike you, I care about my personal appearance." Fandral huffed. "Bah, you are a baby." Volstagg rolled his eyes. "Heck, I wear my scar with pride." He howled, showing the mark I had left on his stomach. "You do know the medics could have fixed that, right?" Sif inquired. "Yes, but what's the point? I like wearing my battle scars, especially if they come from a friend." Volstagg nodded with a grin. "Well, I don't know about you guys, but I am tired." I chuckled, breaking their conversation. "So, see ya." "But the feast?" Thor gasped. "Thor, we do one every week." I deadpanned. "Exactly, and today's is to celebrate your first month." Thor nodded. "First month of what?" I asked with a sigh. "Of Asgardian Badizari." Thor nodded once again. 1 month ago, you were a puny human, but during this last month of you living here, you have bathed in Asgardian glory, which makes you an honorary Asgardian." "I'm not sure that's how immigration works. Also, I don't live here, I still sleep in my house, with my family," I replied with a smile. "Give him the jacket, humans love jackets, give him the jacket." Fandral whispered, and by whispered I mean shouted. "Oh right, the jacket." Thor nodded, giving me a box. "Here you go." He grinned like a child. Sighing, I opened the box to find that inside there was a leather jacket that said, "The Warrior 4." "This is." By the time I looked up, Thor, Fandral, the unconscious Horgun, and Volstagg had their jackets on, which like mine said, "The Warrior 4." "We watched a movie marathon to learn about humans, and jackets seem to be the center of your culture," Fandral stated with a wide smile. "You guys watched 80s movies?" I snorted, looking at the jacket. "Fine, why not?" I chuckled, putting the jacket on. "You have become a member of the Warrior 4 equals 75% Asgardian, 25% human." After another weekly feast, I went back to my Asgardian house, to rest. It was Friday after all, and tomorrow I would go back to Earth and visit the girls, but for now, I would rest. "I thought you were going back home," Sif muttered, jumping inside my house through my open window. You know there is a door, right? I said with a raised eyebrow. Yes, but where is the fun in knocking? Sif winked. I suppose, I chuckled. Well, to answer your question, is already too late on Earth, so I decided to stay here for the night. I didn't want to wake up the girls. Thor was very excited you accepted his offer to join his elite group of warriors, Sif commented, taking a seat beside me on my bed. He is at times a big child, is he not? I chuckled. He is, Sif chuckled. So, what are you doing here, Lady Sif? Surely you know how bad it looks for a woman to be with a man on his chambers, alone. I teased with a smirk. Sif smirked, as she slugged me on the arm playfully. A meaty little smack. And who will dare to talk about me? Tush, I chuckled. So, wanna watch a movie? I asked. I mean, for that reason I had brought a battery-powered TV, to watch movies and chill with my Asgardian friends. Sure, Sif nodded, getting comfortable. Watching movies with Sif, or hanging out with her, in general, had become routine, to the point I had begun to consider I liked her, perhaps more than just friends. Well, time to go. I sighed as I watched over the clock. It was already morning on Earth. Going home? Sif asked as she approached me. I looked at her and for a moment I wondered, should I take my shot? Yes. I nodded, gathering the courage to ask her to come to Earth with me, as friends. Would you like to come with me? I asked. To Earth? Sif asked, taken back by my request. Yes. I could show around, and it would annoy Thor. I had yet to bring Thor to Earth, and bringing anyone but him first would annoy the god of thunder. Annoying Thor, you drive a hard bargain. Sif chuckled. Fine, why not? Grinning, I opened a portal to Earth, and for dramatics bowed. After you, Lady Sif. Sif chuckled as she walked through the portal, followed by me. At the other side of the portal, I found Bucky wearing a Hello Kitty apron as he cooked for the girls. Nice apron. I chuckled. Bucky said nothing and continued cooking. Hi, my name is Emily Walker. Emily greeted Sif, running towards her with a welcoming smile. Are you dating our daddy? If you rush at any potential female for our paternal figure like that, he won't ever get a girlfriend. Natasha chuckled from the kitchen. Don't be silly, Daddy is super handsome, is he not? Emily asked Sif, who with a teasing smile nodded. He is, Sif chuckled. See? Emily nodded with a satisfied smile towards Nat. I never said he wasn't handsome, but your eagerness for him to date will scare any potential females. Nat chuckled. So this is a Midgard household? Sif asked, looking around. Not the best example of how they usually look. I chuckled. I am rich, therefore, my house is way bigger than normal Midgardian houses. I would like to see a normal Midgardian house later then, to compare to Asgard, Sif replied, walking to the kitchen. You must be the sworn shield of the Walker family, she said, greeting Bucky. Something like that, Bucky replied. My name is Sif, the Asgardian goddess of war, Sif introduced herself. A goddess? Emily gasped with stars in her eyes. I find it disturbing she uses magic for things like that. Nat commented with a shudder. Hey, you got your kung fu moves, I got my magic. Emily huffed. Your daughters are warriors like yourself? Sif asked with a gleam of excitement. Yes. I nodded, my chest puffing with pride. Nat here is like you, a warrior of arms and weapons, while Emily here is a great sorceress in the making. Dad. I'm blushing. Emily giggled, hiding her head under her shirt. We are cool, we know it. Nat grinned with a wink. Then maybe they should come to Asgard one of these days. Sif proposed, we have classes for children their age. I don't know. I scratched the back of my head, they have school, and their training. We have Sunday off. Nat said. I suppose I could take them, next Sunday to see Asgard. I nodded. So, what first? Sif nodded. I haven't been on Midgard in a few, so what is first in our list? Breakfast, then a small tour of New York, I said with a smile. I made eggs and toast, Bucky said, would you guys like anything else? No, that's fine, I replied. Good, 'cause I wasn't going to cook anything else, Bucky grinned. After a nice breakfast with the girls, Bucky took Nat to her shield classes and Emily teleported to Nepal, leaving me and Sif alone for our tour. But first, I needed to buy her some clothes. Walking with a full set of armor and a sword around the city would bring me unwanted attention. Must I wear this? Sif asked with a huff. For a warrior like her, wearing garments like the ones I had provided was nearly an insult. Yes, otherwise people will stare at us way too much, I replied. The last thing I wanted was people chasing us and thinking Sif was a cosplayer. Feels weird, Sif sighed, moving her body around. It's jeans and a shirt, a common Midgardian look, I replied with a soft chuckle. I even bought you a leather jacket, so people know you are a badass, I chuckled, as she put on her jacket. I suppose Sif smiled. Now can we tour the city? Yes, let's, I nodded with a smile. I walked with Sif around the city, showing her every little corner she wanted to explore. It was almost adorable seeing such a fearsome warrior like her getting excited by things like a gas station hot dog, and other minor things like that. It was precious, really. I showed her the good, and the bad of the city. I mean, there was no point in showing someone only the good parts, but regardless of what I showed her, she was always excited, grinning like a kid with a new toy to play. Our tour eventually led us to the Theodore Roosevelt Park, where I took the initiative of setting up a picnic. I wanted to get to know her better before making any moves, though I suppose a picnic could be considered a move. The point was, I wanted to see if my attraction to her was more than purely physical. That part was sure. I liked her, she was in peasant terms hot as fuck. But no relationship really lasted if the only thing you liked about the other person was their body. Also, I wanted to see if she liked me. You kinda need both parties to agree on that. Today has been quite the adventure, Sif said, a wide blinding smile on her face as she looked at me. Well, considering where you live, I'll take that as a compliment. I smiled back at her. It truly is a miracle how Midgardians live. Besides you and your sworn shield, they look. Sif paused for a moment as if trying to find the correct word to describe human weakness. Weak. Soft. I chuckled, getting an odd look from her. Look, don't feel bad for saying it, we humans are weak by an evolution standard point of view. But is that weakness that fuels our greed for more, for improvement? Is that why you became so strong? Sif inquired with a curious look. For human greed? I suppose in a way. Yes, I nodded. I also wanted to be the ruler of my life, which was an impossibility as long as I was like everyone else. Freedom through power. Sif gave me a soft smile. I can relate to that. You can. I looked at her with a curious look. If you repeat anything I say from this point on, I will beat you, Sif threatened in a joking manner. Cross my heart and hope to die, I promised. What? Sif chuckled. Is a human thing, it means I won't say a word, I chuckled back. Got to remember that, Sif smiled. Well, as I was saying, I'm a woman. And that's a problem in which way? I asked. That in Asgardian culture, We are often overlooked, Sif replied with a sad smile. I trained twice, no thrice as hard as everyone else. Day and night I practiced with my sword until my hands bleed, and even then, I continued, pushing beyond my limits, perfecting my moves. I spent centuries practicing without a rest, but that didn't matter, for everyone else only saw me as a woman. My gender alone was the very chain that kept me down. I looked at her. I can't say I relate to that. If I did, I would be lying, but those that judged you based on your gender are idiots. Sif laughed, a bitter laugh. They are, in the end. It was Thor who showed everyone else I was as capable as the rest of the men in Odin's army, and with time, well, I made a name for myself. I have to ask, how can Asgardians be so misogynistic? I asked, with a frown. I mean, what about the Valkyries? Weren't the Valkyries an all-women force? When they existed? Sif chuckled. I said the same, but since their demise long before my birth, well, warriors such as myself have been working against the tide. I smiled at her. So I get your feeling, Sif smiled. Power is sadly the breaker of chains. We all have chains, and only power can break them, be it the chains of one's gender, of the chains of one's innate weakness. Wise words, I nodded. I have my moments, Sif grinned. Well, cheers to our success so far. I chuckled, giving her a cup of wine I had pulled out of my inventory alongside a very expensive wine. Wine. By the All-Father, if I didn't know any better, I would think you were trying to court me, Sif smiled, grabbing the cup. Who knows? I winked. You are playing a dangerous game, human, Sif replied, taking a sip of the cup. One that you might not wanna play if you are not sure. Life for a human in this universe is intrinsically dangerous, so what's a risk or two? I shot back with a playful grin. I can't argue with that, Sif smiled, raising her cup. To our freedom. I smiled at her, raising my cup to meet hers, to our freedom. After a long picnic, and a few teasing comments here and there, we restarted the tour, this time showing her the nightlife of New York, but before we could see or watch anything good, I got a message on my phone, an urgent one. Sabretooth had escaped. Is everything okay? Sif inquired with a worried look, reading my expression. No, a dangerous criminal has escaped, I replied, cursing Sabretooth on my head. Couldn't he escape tomorrow? I was making progress here. And now I have to hunt him down. Sif's worried expression changed to an excited one. Then I shall help you with this, she declared. You don't have to, I assured her. Of course I do, Sif grinned. Besides, I want to see what other Midgardians have to offer in the way of combat. I chuckled. Okay, I suppose we can hunt him together. Now this is a real Asgardian date. Sif grinned. A date? I asked with a teasing smile. Who knows? Sif shot back with a wink, using my own words against me. After changing into our fighting attire, we went out to hunt Victor Creed, which was remarkably easy to do thanks to my satellite, which I used to track Sabretooth to a forest nearby the prison he had escaped from. Is this criminal you are hunting dangerous? Sif asked with a curious look. I hummed at that thought. Yes, he's quite the threat. Sif smiled. Good, otherwise, this would have been dull. I chuckled. Well, let's keep going then. According to my map, Sabretooth was not moving. He was 1 mile away, motionless, meaning one of two things: 1, he had smelled us and was waiting for us, or 2, he was waiting for something else. Are we getting close? Sif asked, her right hand gripping on her sword. We are, I nodded. We continued running towards our objective for the next 2 minutes, finding our target sitting on a rock with a wild grin. He was happy to be found, which I found extremely odd. Victor, is time to go back to prison, a better one this time, I said, staring right into his eyes. But why the rush? Victor grinned, his fangs showing in a threatening way. Sif looked at me and then at Victor, and with a smile, took a step forward, unsheathing her sword that shone under the moonlight that covered the forest in a dazzling manner. We will capture you, dead or alive, your choice. You found yourself a mate. Victor cackled, sniffing the air. Though you two haven't mated yet, she doesn't smell like you. Okay, enough talk, I sighed, turning to look at Sif. Wanna go at him alone, or? I asked. I wish to try my skills against him on a one-on-one, Sif declared with a smile. I chuckled. Go ahead, I said, taking a seat on the ground. I knew Victor Creed was stronger than her, I knew that, with him being more than a few levels ahead of her, but I wasn't worried about them fighting. I had the skills and the power to stop them both should the necessity arise. Letting your women fight your fights, Victor snorted. How disappointing, he added with a snarl. This woman will cut you to pieces, Sif declared in a challenging manner. And I will eat popcorn while she does that, I winked at Victor, who growled at me. Don't hold back or I'll break you, Victor growled, turning at Sif. Sif shrugged, smirked, and slowly brought one foot back, same kitty cat. With a smile, Sif rushed at Sabretooth. Her blade weaved through the air in a swift motion, and just as she was about to reach him, she jumped into the air and slashed downwards with her sword at him. Grinning, Sabretooth parried the attack with an attack of his own, clashing his right claw against Sif's sword, creating sparks that flew into the air, briefly illuminating the night. Sif, seeing this, was quick to adjust and moved her blade to the side, slashing the feral warrior. Not bad, Sabretooth complimented, seeing his injury with a hint of amusement, but not enough. By the time he had said this, his injury had been healed. So you heal? Sif smiled. That means I can play rough. It means you will die, Sabretooth shot back with a growl. I coughed, a fake cough. I'm here, kitty cat, which means you will do nothing but go back to prison, one way or another. Sabretooth growled at me, baring his teeth in an animalistic gesture, but as he turned his attention at me, Sif rushed at him, and plunged her blade into his throat. Pathetic, Sif scoffed, slashing his throat open. All while I was keeping my mouth open like an emoji. You bitch! Sabretooth hissed, coughing blood as his throat regenerated, but Sif gave him no chance, sinking her blade on his spine, impaling the mutant. Every warrior wants a worthy opponent. There is no glory in fighting, the pathetic Sif said with a cold tone. You are strong, possibly stronger than me, but you have let your confidence in your skills dull your warrior senses. You could have dodged my first attack, and the second, for Odin's sake, even my last, but you know you can take a beating, so you do just that. You take the beating, and look at you, you can't move, or regenerate with my sword on your spine. I will kill you, bitch! Sabretooth hissed, trying to move, but as Sif had said, his spine was severed right now, and he could only move his head. He had been defeated by someone weaker than him, and that probably hurt more than the sword on his back. It seems our hunt came to an end, Sif declared, turning to face me with a wide smile. It sure looks like that, I smiled, opening a portal beneath Sabretooth, sending him back to prison, this time one reinforced with magic, courtesy of the Ancient One. That was surprisingly easy, Sif admitted. With his power, he should have been able to press me more. He was stronger than you, physically, but he lacked your experience, I nodded. I noticed that Sif nodded. So, will I get my sword back? Or you will, in a few days. I just want to mess with him first, I chuckled. Fair enough, Sif chuckled back. So, wanna go back to the city? I asked with a smile. Yes, You have yet to show me the nightlife of Midgard. Sif nodded, and so I opened a portal to my house so that we could change back into a normal attire. Back into civilian clothes, we continued our tour of the city, which eventually led us to the best part of New York's nightlife, the street tacos near the most dangerous zone in all of the city. Yes, you could hear a shot or two every now and then, and people would try to rob us every now and then, but in all honesty, the tacos around the area were worth it. These are truly delicious. Sif shouted with a smile for everyone to hear, and by everyone I mean the 10 robbers we had so far knocked and tied down. They are, I nodded. So far we had eaten 20 each. Would you like another dozen, sir? Miguel the taco truck owner asked with a smile. Miguel Gonzalez, the bringer of tacos, LV19. Of course, Sif answered before I could. I want them extra spicy, she added. You got yourself a keeper, Mr. Walker, Miguel chuckled. Miguel, why do you even sell your pieces of heaven here? I asked. Well, to help the community, why else? Miguel chuckled. I sell my food at a reasonable price, Mr. Walker, and give the people around this area something affordable to eat, something good. I help in my own way, which by cooking, yes, I get some that rob me, but the more I come, the less those bad ones come. We knocked out 10 robbers, I deadpanned. Well, it's because they know you, Mr. Walker. You are a billionaire. For them, you are their free out of this dumb ticket. Their words, not mine, Miguel chuckled. I sighed. I think I will invest some money into these parts. It would help a lot of people, Miguel nodded with a smile. Anyway, another dozen coming right up. After Sif returned to Asgard, I went back to my routine, which was to continue researching the super soldier serum. I was so close to cracking it. I could feel it. Unfortunately, I was stuck in the middle of nowhere with it, but I was in no hurry. I would soon crack this baby, one day at a time. I would get closer to the perfect formula. Though I'm not going to lie, it was pretty annoying. To be honest, it was like having 99% of the picture ready in my head, but missing one piece, one little piece that was crucial. I guess the best way I can describe my current feeling about the formula is like when you forget a word, and you have it in the tip of your tongue, but can't really remember. More than not, you remember the word after you no longer need it. Maybe I should get more blood from Bucky. No, that wouldn't work. No matter how many samples I get, the results would be the same. Whatever I was lacking, was not on his blood, or in anyone's blood. I sighed. What else I could do, with how it was? I could make a bootleg serum, like the one the Russians used, or an improved version like the one Hydra used on Bucky, but those still needed something. They lacked something the original serum had. Maybe I should learn necromancy, I chuckled. Then again, it wasn't a bad idea, morally questionable, yes, but it would solve a lot of problems if I resurrected Abraham Erskine, and made him finish what I started. Though I sincerely doubt the Ancient One will lend me a book about the subject, but then again, I don't need her to get something like that. There are a few dungeons with rewards like that one. No, I can do this. I shook my head. While it would surely solve my problems, enslaving those who passed away to help me, would make me no better than Hydra. So this brought me back to square one. Always in your lab, that voice, the Ancient One. Well, I have things to do, and besides, I am not always here. I go out with the girls, at least twice a week, I replied, without even turning to meet her. There was much work to do, and little time to do it. I know what your little project is missing, the Ancient One commented, stopping me on my tracks. You do? I asked, turning around to see her smirking. I might not be a scientist such as yourself or Abraham Erskine, but I know lots of things, the Ancient One smirked, taking a seat on one of my tables. Considering you haven't offered me the information, I will go ahead and assume you want something in exchange. I sighed with her. You could never know. You are absolutely right, the Ancient One nodded. I want something. The question is, can you provide it? Okay, this was creeping out. Which is? I asked, narrowing my eyes on her. I need you to recover a something from me, from a dark place, the Ancient One began, the dark dimension to be precise. So you want me to die? I snorted. I might not be as experienced as you with the mystic arts and all, but I know about Dormammu. I know you know, the Ancient One smiled. I also know, you won't die if you go there. Dormammu can't kill you. Can't kill me. Or rather won't kill you. Elaborate. I asked, pressing the matter. I can't, the Ancient One replied with a sigh. All I can share is that you will be okay. In fact, you are possibly one of the only beings in existence Dormammu would be reluctant to kill. Well, ain't that ominous as fuck? Not that I'm saying yes, but what do you need to recover? I asked. A piece of my soul I left there a long time ago, the Ancient One replied, as if that answered anything at all. I rubbed my temples. Is there anything else you can share? I asked. No, believe me, I wish I could, but I can't, the Ancient One sighed. I will think on it, I replied after a brief moment of silence. You know where to find me. With that said, she left, leaving me with much to think about. The Ancient One POV. I teleported back to my chambers to find no other than Odin Borson sitting on a chair with a disapproving look. Yo, you are playing with fire, Odin warned. I know that, Odin, I chuckled. Yo, it has been so long this someone called me that, it feels foreign. Then why are you risking it? Odin sighed, rubbing his temples. He could die there. You know as well I do. Dormammu won't kill him, I replied, taking a seat. That is just a conjecture you have, Odin stated with a stern look. Dormammu can kill him as easily as he can kill a fly. You are betting a lot on him not doing it because of where Alex comes from. I have seen the future, many of them, and in the majority of them, he lives, at least 9 out 10. Dormammu does nothing but talk with him, I replied, looking away. I know, Odin sighed. I might not have the time stone, but I have also checked his future. More than not, he survives. Is the futures where he doesn't that I don't like. He will be okay, I sighed. Odin had a knack to make me feel bad. I know I'm using him to avoid my future death in a selfish manner by having him recover the piece of my soul I left in Dormammu's dimension. But while this is indeed selfish, it will help Alex understand his origins. Or kill him, Odin snorted. You know you are in this position because you are stubborn. I offered you a golden apple 1,000 years ago, and you declined my offer, and now look where we are. I was young, and prideful, Odin, as were you, I replied with a small chuckle. I was old enough to be your dad, forbore Bear. Thor's old enough to be your dad, Odin chuckled, before he let a grim expression settle in. I hope you know what you're doing. I know, I replied, looking out the window. Go to Dormammu's dark dimension, or keep trying on my own with the formula. Decisions that made everything more complicated. However, this time, the choice was simple. I would not go. I didn't care what the Ancient One wanted. If I were to die in that realm, Emily and Natasha would be left alone. My life was no longer mine alone. It belonged to those who loved me, to those who depended on me, to my daughters, and I could not make such life decisions without considering the possible repercussions that they would bring. So no, I would not help the Ancient One. She made her decision in her time, the decision to obtain immortality through the power of Dormammu, just as I now make my decision, to protect my family. I know you're there, I announced, glancing sideways behind my back. Have you made your decision yet? The Ancient One asked, appearing in my room. Yes, I nodded, and though provocative, I can't help you, I sighed. You say Dormammu won't kill me, but the truth is that you're not 100% sure, and as long as there's even the slightest chance that I'll die, I won't take such risks. The Ancient One looked down at the floor with a faint smile adorning her face. Among the thousands of futures I saw, in only a few of them you said yes to this mission. I looked at her with mild surprise. So you were betting on this being one of those futures in which I decided to help you? The Ancient One looked at me and with a smile nodded slowly. Yes, but I didn't have high hopes for it. As an old friend told me, I was playing with fire. I'm really sorry I can't help you, but if I were to die, it would affect not only myself but my daughters, I said with a weak smile. I understand, the Ancient One smiled, approaching me. Take this, she said, handing me a piece of paper. There you will find what you are missing. I looked at the paper, and quickly noticed that it had some coordinates on it. Is this what I need? I asked her. Is this the last piece? Yes, in that location lays the last piece of your puzzle, the Ancient One smiled. But I didn't help you, I said, staring at the paper. No, you didn't, the Ancient One laughed, but my help never depended on your help, I just tried to manipulate you. I hope you don't blame this old sorceress for trying. I chuckled, thanks. Well, I am off to teach Emily how to access the mirror dimension, a class you skipped, the Ancient One winked, teleporting out of sight. I will never understand that woman, I sighed, turning to look at the paper she had given me, reading the coordinates and adding them to my map. Germany, Augsburg. The Ancient One POV. Well, that was a bet that didn't play out in my favor. Oh well, you can't win them all. He said. No, Odin sighed in relief. For a moment there I thought I would have had to interfere. I looked at Odin and smiled. The All-Father worrying about a human, how times change, I smirked under my breath. The Odin of old would have killed Alex for stepping into Asgard unannounced. Don't lecture me about changing, little girl. You of all people know the me of the past, and the me of now are basically two different persons. Odin rolled his eye. I meant no offense, Odin, I smiled, conjuring some tea. I was just making an observation. You're an expert on that, Odin chuckled. Well, I might be a little girl to you, but by human standards I am old, and you tend to pick a thing or two. I smiled at him, offering a cup of tea. Is my secret tea stash? You and your team, Odin sighed. I suppose I might as well give it a try. I like tea. Tea was a way to cleanse the soul, to restart your energies, in more ways than one. Well, I like alcohol, if any type, Odin replied, snapping his fingers, transforming the cup of tea into a mug of beer. Such a waste of good tea. I shook my head sadly. Talk for yourself, Odin guffawed. So, about the future, I started. How's your daughter doing? I asked. Odin glared at me for a moment before he sighed. Trapped, he answered. For now, he added. I can see your power decreasing more and more, I stated. At this pace, I don't think you will last more than a decade or two holding her back. I know, Odin sighed. She won't be happy with the changes I made, or about her promised prince falling for another, or in the process of. I can't picture Hela worrying about such things. It was just so hard to get that picture in my head, and considering I had seen beyond Dormammu's veil, well, it's hard to picture something I can't imagine. A warrior worthy of standing by her in conquest, Odin recited with a sigh. I told her about the prophecy myself, when I was blind to my own mistakes. And you aren't blind to them now? I asked, getting a glare from Odin. I do what I do for the good of Asgard, Odin replied with a hiss, avoiding my gaze for a brief moment. Perhaps you could learn a thing or two from Alex, I smiled, putting my hand on his shoulder. His kids are not immortal gods, Odin scoffed. First of all, You are not immortal, you are as we speak slowly dying. I rolled my eyes. Second of all, sons or daughters, no matter their age, they all yearn for the same, their parents' unconditional love. Or the blood of their enemies Odin's side. And whose fault is that? I shot back. If I wanted therapy, I would have gone to an Asgardian therapist. Odin barked, opening a portal of Asgard, goodbye. And with that he left. So old, yet so ignorant to the mysteries of the heart. I shook my head in slight disappointment. I wonder if you will do better, Alex. After all, if you don't learn quickly, your destiny will eat you alive. Augsburg, Germany. Of all places, the last piece of my unsolvable puzzle was here. Heck, as soon as I had read the paper, a quest had appeared, legitimizing everything. Quest: the Super Soldier Serum, the last piece. Description: in the house of Abraham Erskine lays the last piece of the puzzle, the answer to all of your dead ends, the last ingredient to perfect your scientific conundrum. Objectives: enter the house of Abraham Erskine and find the hidden piece. Rewards: the last piece. I suppose it is poetic in a peculiar sense. After all, Abraham Erskine, the creator of the Super Soldier Serum, the scientific puzzle I was trying to solve, was born and raised here, in Augsburg, Germany. In a way, everything started here. Well, time to find that last piece, I sighed, opening my map. According to the coordinates the Ancient One had given me, the last piece was on a house. Quite anticlimactic if you asked me, but who was I to judge? Closing my map with a blink, I walked towards the location, setting a waypoint in my minimap. I was close, very close, which is why I was taking the scenic route. I had waited for so long for this last piece, for this last clue, that I wanted to take my sweet time, ironic considering how desperate I was for it before all of this began. Eventually, without even noticing, I reached the house. I suppose my own thoughts burned the purpose of the scenic route. Taking a deep breath, I knocked at the door. According to my minimap, there were 4 people inside the house. Was auch immer sie verkaufen, wir wollen es nicht. Whatever you're selling, we don't want it. A man opened the door, growling at me. Lucas Muller, LV 22. So much for a first impression. English? I asked with a hopeful smile. An American. Lucas sighed. What do you want? He asked in an exasperated manner. I want to check something inside your house. I will pay you for your time. First there was the friendly approach. If the guy said no, well, there was the not so friendly approach. Why would I let you inside my house, with my family? Lucas asked, glaring at me. My grandfather used to live here. I just wanted to see the house, I lied with a smile. You can follow me if you please, all I want is to connect with my roots, his roots. Lucas raised an eyebrow at that. What's your pa's name? Abraham Erskine, I replied without missing a beat. He died during the war. How much will you pay? Lucas sighed, rubbing his eyes. How much do you want? It is your house, after all, I replied, smiling. 5,000 Deutschmarks. Lucas answered. That's a lot, but I'll pay it. To be honest, I had no idea how much was that, but fuck it. Fuck, wasn't expecting a yes on that one. Lucas chuckled. Come in, I guess. I smiled at him. Whoever this man was, he was not a businessman. After all, you always ask for your money first. Thanks, I smiled at him, walking inside the house, where he proceeded to do some quick introductions. Lucas, the somewhat angry man, was a father of 2, a girl and a boy, and was angrily married. I couldn't tell. Take your time, I want my money before you leave. Lucas growled as I started to tour the house. I sighed, searching each room methodically. Until I reached the attic and found what I was looking for in the form of a shining beacon. My minimap started to blink, and there I realized I had reached the place I had been meant to find. Following the minimap, I reached a wall in the attic, and with a bit of magic cracked the thing open, finding a journal. The Journal of Abraham Erskine. Quest completed, the Super Soldier Serum, the last piece. Description: in the house of Abraham Erskine lays the last piece of the puzzle, the answer to all of your dead ends, the last ingredient to perfect your scientific conundrum. Objectives: enter the house of Abraham Erskine and find the hidden piece. Rewards: the last piece. I had done it, finally. I had the last piece, no more dead ends, no more incertitude. In my hands I held what I needed. You broke my wall. I heard Lucas growl, but I paid him no heed. I will double my payment, I said, giving him the money, cash. What is that? Lucas asked, glaring at the journal in my hands. I looked at Lucas, noticed his eyes gleaming with greed. It's what's left of my family, I lied. I want to read that, Lucas growled. He probably thought I had a treasure map on my hands, why else I was here, right? His mind was racing through a million thoughts, many of them probably related to the diary and the cash I had given him. No, I shook my head, putting the journal under my coat, aka my inventory. It was in my house, it's mine, Lucas growled, grabbing me by the collar of my shirt. You don't want to do this, I warned him with a smile. I paid you, you made money today, I can even give you a tip, but if you go this route, you will lose that money in hospital bills. Lucas scoffed, kid, whatever your pa left here, it's now mine, so hand it over. His hand moved to my neck. I sighed. I tried to do this peacefully, disappointed with this development. I grabbed the hand holding me. I told you, and with that, I broke his hand. So little resistance, it was a horrible feeling. When was the last time I fought a normal human? They felt like crackers now. Ah. Verdammte Mistkerl. Lucas cursed, no idea what he was calling me though. My German classes didn't go so far for me to recognize insults. Here I kneeled to his level, putting more money on his reach. That should cover the arm. I winked, tapping his head, using eldritch magic to erase certain parts from his memory, my fake name, my fake grandfather, and why had we fought? Scots. I heard his lady wife say in a worried tone. He's here, I said, walking out of the attic. The woman glared at me, which was understandable. Sighing, I approached the woman and with my eldritch magic did the same I had done with her husband, erasing certain parts of her memory, and then I left. For them, today was a day with a bittersweet ending. They helped a stranger, they made money, but unfortunately, as the stranger left, Mr. Lucas broke his arm on the way up to the attic. Such sad turn of events. I had finally done it, after so long. I had finally completed the Super Soldier Serum. With Abraham Erskine's journal, I had managed to finally decode and recreate the formula that had haunted me for quite a while, to perfection. And now, in my hands, I held the final product. All there was left to do was test it out. For that, however, I still needed something else, the last ingredient, figuratively speaking. The Vita radiation chamber in S.H.I.E.L.D.'s possession, which I had requested from Fury. Outside, with your big-ass microwave, I won't lie, when I got this message, I basically teleported myself to the door to receive what I was craving for. That was fast, Fury commented with a raised brow. So, can I know why you need this old thing? He inquired. I am testing some stuff, I replied, avoiding the subject with a smile. Basically I am researching about Vita radiation, and the effects on human biology, technically the true. Fury hummed with a blank look. Good enough for me, he eventually shrugged. You really never question my projects, I chuckled, as the shield agents he had brought moved the Vita radiation chamber into my room. Alex, you're like a cat, Fury replied with a chuckle. In what way? I asked, confused by his analogy. A cat is happy when left to do his own thing. I don't press on you, and you don't fuck me, as simple as that, Fury replied with a grin. A cat, well, I guess it could be worse. At this, Goose came to the door purring, with her tiara. Hello Princess, Fury bowed. At this, Goose purred even louder, as she left the door happy with the respects Fury had paid to her. Goose the princess that eats furniture, I chuckled. It's a cat, they do weird shit, Fury shrugged. Anyway, I have to go, terrorists to kill, agents to train, bitches to slap, you know, the usual. See you Sunday for movie night, I waved at him, slowly closing the door. See ya then, Fury waved back, leaving his people. Finally, without anyone else in the area, except Bucky and Goose, because the girls were in school, I moved to inspect the Vita radiation chamber. Vita radiation chamber, broken. Broken. Ha. Not for long. Bucky. I called. You called. Bucky replied, coming out of nowhere. That was fast, I nodded. I was waiting behind this wall, Bucky replied without missing a beat. I was bored, he added after a few seconds. So he was getting empty nest symptoms during the day. I might need to find the man a hobby. Okay, well, help me move this to the lab, I pointed to the Vita radiation chamber. This was it, right? Bucky asked, the one they used on Steve to make him the first super soldier, right? Not sure, I replied, looking at the chamber, but perhaps, I added. Bucky smiled. Let's move this thing, he said with a hint of sadness. I almost felt bad for not telling him Steve was alive. After a long painstaking process of geometry to move the chamber to my lab, I started working on the chamber. I had, after all, to fix the thing, which would be easy, barely an inconvenience, considering all the fucking skills I had hoarded for this very moment. How long do you think it will take you to fix this? Bucky asked. He was working as my assistant for today. I needed the extra muscle. I hummed, cleaning my hands with a towel from the oil and other things. Well, I say a few extra hours at best, a few days at most. Fury doesn't know, right? Bucky asked. No, I shook my head. Smart, Bucky muttered. The higher-ups would target me if they caught wind about my projects, I nodded. For the moment the council heard about my secret projects, they would turn on me. Not that it would make much of a difference, Bucky snorted. They can't take on us. No, but like my grandpa used to say, no enemy is too small, everyone can be a threat, I replied with a sigh. Wise, I suppose, Bucky sighed. With that said and done, we returned to our work. We still had a few good hours before I had to pick Emily and Nat up from school, 6 hours to be precise, and I would make good use of them. 6 hours later, and the Vita radiation chamber was still not up to optimal conditions, but if I continued working like I was, I estimated I would finish fixing the thing up by the end of the day. But first, I had to pick my girls from school. Well, that's enough for the moment, I whistled, cracking my neck. I'm off to pick up the girls, thanks for the help. Bucky nodded. I will order some food. Is Chinese good? I nodded, walking out of the lab, using magic to clean myself up, and change my attire. That sounds good enough. Perfect, Bucky replied, grabbing a towel to clean his face. Keep an eye on Goose. If she eats the chamber, I will muzzle her for a month. I shouted for Goose to hear. Will do, Bucky chuckled. I picked the girls from school, and like every Wednesday took them to pick some donuts for after lunch. a boy was flirting with Nat. Emily blurted out, getting a glare from Nat. Poor parents, I sighed as I shook my head, to lose their kid so young. Dad. Nat gasped, which melted my heart. This was the first time she had called me Dad. What? I asked with an innocent smile. Don't kill him, Nat muttered. I don't like him, but he likes me, which is not a sin, she stated. I wouldn't do such a thing, I replied in amused shock. Then again. Don't worry, as if I would date a brainless kid, Nat smirked. I have high standards. He or she has to be stronger than me, I winked. So, a nun, that's my future. Nat replied with a blank look. That sounds not bad actually, I hummed as if I was actually thinking about it. Nat chuckled before she turned to see Emily with narrowed eyes. Don't look at me like that, we promised Daddy that we would not date until we were 80. Emily puffed her cheeks in indignation. 85. I chimed in with a chuckle. I pity our love interests in the future, Nat chuckled. Back at the lab after eating a big-ass lunch that included, but was not limited to 3 house specials, pork, and teriyaki chicken, I resumed my work, now with newfound energy. There was no time to waste, I was so close to completing my project, that I just couldn't rest. Can you pass me that box? I asked Bucky, who passed me the box with parts as I levitated the chamber above me to work under it. Telekinesis, such a useful power, Bucky acknowledged as I moved things around me with my mind. It was, especially with projects like this. So how we doing? Bucky asked. Almost done, I replied, connecting a few cables under the chamber. It should technically work after this, I added, putting the chamber on the floor. So far, everything looked like it had during Steve's transformation, maybe a bit brighter if anything. So now what? Bucky asked, approaching the chamber with a curious look. Now we check if everything is functional, I replied, signaling him to get back as I turned the machine on, checking all the readings I was getting from it, and so far, everything was up to standard. I think that's it, I grinned with excitement. Finally, the moment to test my project was here. What do I need to know? Bucky asked, knowing what came next. Not much, I replied. I wired the entire chamber to work with 2 buttons, one to turn the machine on, and the other to start the processes to avoid confusion. And the buttons are? Bucky asked, pointing at the control panel. They all look the same, which is which? I hummed, apparently, I had forgotten to color code the buttons. Give me a sec, I said, taking a piece of tape. The one with tape is the first one. Okay, Bucky chuckled. Now, all I knew to do is get the super soldier serum, I nodded, going to where I had stacked the serum I had made. This will hurt, Bucky stated. I know, I nodded, putting the serum where it was supposed to go. Are you ready? Bucky asked as I finished checking everything up. Yes, I nodded, triple checking everything. Then let's do this, Bucky replied. Let's, I nodded, taking my shirt and pants off before getting inside the Vita radiation chamber, as to have no resistance for the injections of the serum. Ready? Bucky asked once again, closing the chamber. Yep, I replied, feeling a bit claustrophobic. You find new things about yourself every day. Bucky nodded, walking to the control panel. Here we go, he sighed, pressing the first button, which initiated the process. At this, the serum was forced into my body in a rather painful way, which was to say something. I mean, with the amount of pain tolerance I had, it was surprising I was feeling pain, a lot of it. Super Soldier Serum, Rebirth 1%. It was like someone was grabbing my muscles, and tearing them apart with unyielding rage. Super Soldier Serum, rebirth 2%. It didn't get better, how can people pay for this? Super Soldier Serum, rebirth 5%. Press the second button. I hissed. This shit was only getting more and more painful as the seconds went by. How the fuck did Steve didn't die with this shit was beyond me. Super Soldier Serum, rebirth 10%. I needed to find a way to reduce the pain. For me it didn't matter, but if I was ever to give this to Emily and Nat, I needed to ease this part, or I would not go through with it. Super Soldier Serum, rebirth 17%. Maybe I can modify the formula, or perhaps the pain came from the sudden change of muscle mass. I had to research about it. Super Soldier Serum, rebirth 23%. I told you it would hurt, Bucky said. I could almost taste the I told you so. Eat a dick, I hissed with a chuckle. Super Soldier Serum, rebirth 25%. Each passing second. Super Soldier Serum, rebirth 27%. Was excruciating. Super Soldier Serum, rebirth 41%. Utter pain, as I felt my body gain strength too fast for it to process accordingly. Super Soldier Serum, rebirth 55%. I now understood the saying that said, there is no gain without pain. Super Soldier Serum, rebirth 67%. I had to admit, I had a newfound respect for Steve, a scrawny kid from Brooklyn, taking all of this. Super Soldier Serum, rebirth 71%. Almost there, so much pain, but almost there. It's almost as bad as Hydra's torture, how ironic. Super Soldier Serum, rebirth 100%. Finally. Super Soldier Serum, rebirth process completed. I took a moment to breathe, as I slowly walked out of the chamber, noticing the changes. I was bulkier now, noticeably so, kinda like Captain America, but bigger, but I didn't care about muscles, those were for show. No, what I wanted was to see my stats. Stats. Name equals Alex Walker. Title equals The Gamer. Occupation equals Scientist. Level equals 163. EXP equals 39450008/39451230. HP equals 812.500/812.500. MP equals 785.000/785.000. STR equals 890, 1690, plus 1098.5, equals 2788. VIT equals 825, 1625. Definite equals 750, 1550. DEX equals 789, 1589. Int equals 770, 1570. Char equals 351. Wis equals 500. Will equals 472, 1272. Per equals 465, 1265. LUK equals 369. Stat points equals 250. Money, $12.548.142.752. Holy fuck. The changes were unreal. Holy fuck. Are you okay? Bucky asked with a concerned tone. I nodded. More than okay, I added with a smile. I feel awesome. I wonder what are you now, Bucky muttered. What? I asked with a curious look. Before this, you were physically almost as strong as me, Bucky chuckled, meaning you were in super soldier level already. so what does this make you? Ultra soldier. Well, that was a good question. I don't know, but I certainly am stronger, by a lot. I smiled, putting my hand on his metal shoulder. You should probably avoid physical contact with the girls until you regain your newfound power, Bucky stated, pointing at his shoulder. The metal had twisted under my grasp. Holy fuck. That was pure titanium, Bucky added. I see your point, I nodded. If I had done that with a simple friendly grasp, a hug, he was right, I needed some control training. That's it for the video, guys. Hope you like the video. Like, share and subscribe. Also tell me in the comment section which kind of fanfiction you would like to watch next, or if you have a recommendation.